What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 382 of AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we get into the questions themselves, a couple cheap plugs here. I've had a lot of interviews go up over the last week here on the channel, from last Tuesday with young rock star Yuli. He plays the college version of Dwayne Johnson on Young Rock every Tuesday on NBC. Check out that video interview that went up last Tuesday. My audio interview with Shotzi Blackheart, one half of the current NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, went up last Wednesday on St. Patrick's Day. And then on Friday was my interview with Daniel Bryan. Now this week, the Rhea Ripley interview was from last May. That was actually the second WWE interview I did last year in 2020. So that interview is older. That came out in May of last year. But that went up yesterday, kind of in light of her recent Raw debut on Monday night, so I thought I would finally post the audio of that interview, which was really cool. Today, my interview with EC3 from Ring of Honor went up in video form. That was an awesome chat. I had a really fun time talking to him. We went over a half an hour. We talked all about Ring of Honor's 19th anniversary show, his brief time in Impact going back recently. Leaving WWE, his Free the Narrative campaign, and so much more. Really everything going on with EC3 nowadays. And it was one of my favorite chats in recent memory, in addition to the Daniel Bryan one, which was also a lot of fun. And then I have another interview going up tomorrow, and then I think another one going up on Friday too. So I say it all the time, but if you guys are not already subscribed, what the hell are you waiting for? And not only for the exclusive interviews with the stars of WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, and other promotions, but also these Q&A videos every single Wednesday. We have not missed an episode in well over 5 years. Since I started doing the show in the summer of 2013, the only time that I've missed was in the second half of 2013 when I went to college. I took a couple of months off from doing the show then. And then the only other period when I stopped doing the show was, aside from like 1 week in January of 2014, was when my computer died in late 2015. And I talked about this before. I missed like 2 or 3 weeks worth of shows because my computer just shit the bed and I had nothing to record on. I mean, I used the computers on campus and college at that point, but I couldn't record hashtags, so that sucked. But other than that, we haven't missed an episode in many, many years, and I don't plan on doing so anytime soon. So we have these Q&A hashtag AskGSM videos go up every single week. We have the podcast excerpts from WrestleRant Radio go up every single Thursday. The WWE Network and show content really dominates the channel. I talk about Raw Talk, Talking Smack, WWE 24, Chronicle, Untold, and everything else that goes up on the WWE Network. We're now on Peacock. Fuck Peacock, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But in all seriousness, though, you can check out all the WWE Network and show content. I'll be breaking down, I believe, if I can watch it in time. I know it's been 3 friggin' days, but I haven't had the chance to watch it. It's just been a really busy week. But on Friday, I do plan on reviewing the Broken Skull Sessions episode with Randy Orton that went up on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, just a lot of stuff going up here on the channel. We had videos go up every single day last year and this year as well. We have not missed a day in at least since 2019, I can tell you that much. So again, if you're not already subscribed, if you haven't already hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up, what the hell are you waiting for? Please support the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to include your video, or rather your question, not your video, your question in next week's video. So let's get started here first with No L from YouTube. Their first question was, I love this question, what would be your top 5 NXT Takeover matches? Now, usually when I get asked like these type of questions, I have to kind of go back and like look at other people's lists to kind of jog my memory. Okay, that match was amazing. I forgot about that one. Literally, without even having to do that, I named 5 matches right off the top of my head. Like seriously, like there's other matches I'm thinking of now just talking about it that I did not include here. But yeah, NXT TakeOver matches, what would my top 5 be? In no particular order, because to rank them would be almost impossible. My order would be this. Andrade, which is now timely, because he just left WWE recently, like this past week. Andrade versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship back at TakeOver Philly. And I'm not even biased because I was there. I mean, I am biased because I was there, but it is widely regarded as one of the greatest matches of all time, easily, in NXT history. Honestly, the first 3 matches on this list are all 3 of the greatest NXT matches ever, and I was in attendance for all 3 of them, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, Andrade and Gargano from TakeOver Philly back in January of 2018 for the NXT title. Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano in the 2 out of 3 falls match from TakeOver, what would that have been? New York, over WrestleMania weekend in 2019. I was there for that one as well. I would put that as my number 1 if I was ranking these, but it's really kind of neck and neck. Bayley and Sasha Banks for the NXT Women's Championship from TakeOver Brooklyn 1 in August of 2015. The greatest women's match I think I've ever seen. I think that still goes without saying even 5-6 years later. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, the main event, the first one. I mean, I'm not putting rematches on here, by the way. I'm not putting Cole and Gargano 2 from TakeOver 25. I'm not putting the Iron Man match between Banks and Bayley at TakeOver Respect. No, I'm not putting Gargano and Ciampa 2 and 3 on here. Technically 4, I guess, too, even though that didn't happen on TakeOver. The first match from TakeOver, what would that have been? New Orleans from August, or rather April of 2018. And then my 5th match, this one was the first one that came to mind. And I'll probably still include it on here anyway. That being Revival versus DIY, which I think was a lot of people's match of the year in 2016. My match of the year, I might have been Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura. But I'm willing to put this one over that one just because this one had an actual story. That was an amazing match. And obviously the greatest debut Nakamura could have asked for in NXT. But it had no story. Aside from the fact that Nakamura was on his way in and Zayn was on his way out. So I'm going to put Revival and DIY, Gargano and Ciampa, for the NXT Tag Team titles from TakeOver Toronto 1 on this list from November of 2016. A few honorable mentions off the top of my head. All the rematches I just mentioned. Because like their first match in Brooklyn was great. As far as other matches I can think of, I loved... Man, there's so many that come to mind. Obviously, Zayn and Nakamura. I mean, again, these are honorable mentions, but Zayn and Nakamura from TakeOver Dallas, which was just a fantastic show. Sami Zayn and Neville for the NXT Championship from TakeOver R Evolution, which was an amazing match. The 4-way women's title match from TakeOver Rival, I think that would have been the TakeOver Fatal 4-way event, the NXT Championship Fatal 4-way match with Neville, Zayn, Kid, and Breeze was outstanding. Wouldn't put it in my top 5, but it was an amazing match. In recent years, I mean, that was a couple of these matches were just 2 years ago. I'm trying to think. Cole and Pat McAfee wouldn't be my top 5, but I really enjoyed that match. Any of the War Games matches, those were always great. Those have been great in recent years. Cole and Black from TakeOver Philly was also a really fun match. Was that Philly? I think it was. Trying to think of other matches. I'm sure there's more that just aren't coming to mind. I mean, every TakeOver is amazing. So those are my top 5, though. Their next question, if you could see one WrestleMania main event match, what match would it be? I assume that you mean realistically, and it's not like, oh, a match, what would I have wanted to see 5 or 10 years ago, like Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle in their prime, like it's WWE 20 or something, or 2K20, whatever. I don't know. That's a good question. Realistically, it would, I mean, with today's roster, the funny thing is that there really aren't any dream matches left. Like, even with all their promotions out there, there's not one match that I say to myself, God, I am desperately waiting to see that one. If anything, maybe Styles and Omega. I don't know if they've ever gone one-on-one, but I think just the story there, being former Bullet Club guys and everything else, I think it'd be amazing. So yeah, I would love to see that match. Obviously, we'll probably never get that. AJ's retiring in WWE, and Omega's probably never going to WWE. Probably that by today's standards, I don't really know, to be honest with you. Thinking about like the matches that I would want to see with today's roster, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Like, of all time, like Taker and Sting was always a big dream match of mine. A main event between those two in 2021 would be utter shit. Even if it was cinematic, maybe, but still not the best message to send when you have two part-timers in your main event in 2020. Brock and Bobby. You know what? Probably Brock and Bobby Lashley. I didn't think of that one, but Brock and Bobby Lashley, if it was booked as an actual fight. And it wasn't just Brock squashing Bobby with fucking suplexes for 5 minutes or less. That would be complete garbage. But if it was an actual competitive match, and it was the match I know they're capable of having, that's what it would be. Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley with Styles and Omega as a close second. Brandon A. from YouTube's got 2 questions here. First one being, I know you were tired of the AEW factions, he says. That's what he starts off with. The big problem, in my opinion, is that they have a large roster with only one TV show. Even with so many groups and tag teams, we can go weeks and weeks without seeing certain talent being featured. For example, the Hybrid 2 went almost an entire year without being featured on Dynamite. Even with them being an undercard tag team, Angelico and Jack Evans are way too good to go that long without being featured. What would be your solution to featuring the entire roster consistently without having so many factions and tag team matches? You said the solution yourself in the very beginning of your question. They only have one TV show. They need a fucking second television show. I wrote about this on Bleacher Report last week. I'm pretty sure I talked about it on WrestleRant Radio. I'm not sure if I've talked about it here before. We need a second show. None of this dark shit, none of this dark elevation shit, which a lot of people, I know it gets good ratings and shit on YouTube. A lot of the people that I talk to did not fucking watch Dark or Dark Elevation. I really just watch it for not any storyline development or for the great matches. It's all squashes. I watch it to review it as content creator. As a content creator, that's what I watch it for. Beyond that, I would not watch the show. It's just complete squash matches. So, anyway, they need a real second show. They've already announced the second show when they re-signed or re-upped with TNT well over a year ago with their contract expiring in late 2019, early 2020. Or it would have been mid-2020, but they re-signed before it expired. They announced the creation of a second show. There has been no word on that since then. I know the pandemic happened, that pushed back plans. Dark is not it. Dark Elevation is not it. Whatever the second show is going to be, I think on TNT, is not going to be either one of those shows. I think my original argument was just make the next show, just put Dark on TV, but I am quickly regretting that. Because even at that point, I think when I said that, they didn't have a big enough roster to justify having 2 shows. They definitely do now. I'm fine with people not being on the show every week. NXT does that. Even NXT doesn't do a great job of cycling talent in and out, but I think they do a better job of it than AEW because they don't have as big of a roster. And AEW overall probably has a better roster than NXT in terms of like the amount of talent they have, but they're not featuring them consistently. You know, like we went literally well over a month and a half, with like almost 2 months actually, without having Hikaru Shida on AEW TV. I think she was over in Japan and that's cool. Can you fucking explain that for the people that are wondering where she is on the weekly show? That happened with Riho when she first won the Women's Championship over a year ago, too. She was gone for months. She was in Japan. Can you at least explain where she is? You know what I mean? So I'm not left wondering where she is. And if it's just one person, I get it. But, like, she was the champion and Shida was the champion. I don't fucking know. But anyway, they need a second show to really showcase all of this talent. They have a great roster. They just need another show because the 2 hours is not enough. They should not go 3 hours. I fucking hate that idea. Split it up into 2 different 2-hour shows, a Raw and a SmackDown. It doesn't have to be brands and stuff. I like the idea of brands, but if they did, it would be way too WWE, I think, for them to do that. So I don't see that happening. But yeah, just the second show I think would be great. I'm tired of the tag teams and the factions. I think what we have now is overkill as it is. Anything more than that would just be even worse. So yeah, I guess we'll see. His second question, outside of Britt Baker, Abaddon, and Thunder Rosa, who on the AEW women's roster can you, 1, actually explain their character to me, and 2, how their characters are affected, if their characters are affected in an actual storyline or angle? The reason I can ask for the second criteria is because somebody like Chris Statlander, for example, has an alien character, but that has been completely irrelevant to any of her matches, and she has had precisely 0 story before her injury. I am rooting for these women, but at the end of the day, why should I care? I'm not even saying someone like Abaddon is good, but at least her character made me understand why Shida was fighting her. Thankfully, the Lights Out match last week actually had a feud to make the match make sense. I completely agree, and I think you raise a lot of good points. And it's tough because, you know, I want to say, oh, Hikaru Shida, like, she's great. But that's just it. She's a great wrestler. But what's the story there? She never has any mic time, and if the English of some of these women, for like a Shida or a Riho, for example, isn't great, then you do sit-down interviews with them, and to their credit, to the company's credit, they did. With Ryo Mizunami at Revolution and Shida, I'm almost positive they had a sit-down, like, type interview promo package talking about the match, their history. I just don't care about Mizunami enough to really give a shit about the match, but I appreciated the attempt and the effort to make me care about them as wrestlers in their match. We need that more consistently. How many pay-per-views do they have a year? 4? Shida getting sit-down interview time 4 times a year is not enough, especially when you're the champion. Abaddon, I think, is fucking awful. A lot of people like Abaddon, and that's fine. Like, listen, I like The Fiend. Other people hate The Fiend. It is what it is. It's personal preference. I think the Abaddon character sucks. And you could probably say, oh, what about The Fiend? It's the exact same thing. Why do you like him? I don't know. I just think it's more creative, and I have not seen one good Abaddon match. The Fiend matches aren't really that great either, to be completely honest with you, but the look of the character is cooler. I just like The Fiend more. I know that wasn't your question, but I could see people asking that. Anyway, so I'm not a big Abaddon fan, but at least she has a character, like you said. And I thought Shida's acting was terrible, but like the story was that Shida was scared of her, and that was the story behind the feud. As soon as the feud ended, Abaddon was off the show for 2 months. Like, there's no consistency there. I'm not complaining that she's not on the show. I don't care about Abaddon. But like, if they're trying to make me care, it's not working because she wasn't on the show after she lost, and there was no reason for it. If she was injured, they never said anything. They have to explain this stuff. If a character disappears off a show for contract issues, or they couldn't make the season, or for whatever reason they disappear off the show, 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to bet you, they will at least explain the absence of that character on the show. With wrestling, we don't get that often enough. I know there's a lot more moving parts and a lot more characters, but you can at least explain without even giving a legit reason. Like, even if they aren't actually off taking a hiatus, you can at least say that, just, I don't know, you can come up with something. But back to your original question, those are the only 3 women with actual stories on the show. Aside from Shida to a certain extent, Rosa and Baker, easily the best women's feud they've done yet, easily the best women's match they've had yet. That Lights Out match was fucking great. But the women's division is still an issue. They have a lot of talent. I will say, I've never been the biggest Big Swole fan. She cut a good promo, though, on Dark a few weeks ago. That's the problem, though. It was on fucking Dark. She should have cut the promo on Dynamite. They should have had her cut the promo on Dynamite. And she's not terrible in the ring. I just don't think she's as good as people make her out to be. But, again, she cut a good promo. She established, hey, I was gone to take care of my disease. I think it's Crohn's disease. She took some time off to take care of that. She's back. She wasn't in the tournament. She wants a title shot. She's coming to collect, and I thought that was cool. Red Velvet. I thought the vignette, again, no one watches fucking Dark or Dark Elevation, but the vignette or the video package they did for her last night, or I think it was on Elevation, actually. It wasn't on Dark itself. It was fantastic. I really didn't care about Red Velvet before that, but she did a fantastic job in that sit-down interview. Where is that shit? Less squash matches, which, listen, if you want to do that stuff, whatever. But I need more sit-down interviews and character development with these people. That is what I want to say. So I'm hoping we get more of that in the future with these women. Really, honestly, though, we're picking on the women's division here. You can say that about a lot of the men on the roster in AEW. You can say that a lot about the men in WWE. This is not an issue isolated to just the women of AEW. I mean, I know there's more people that you care about on the men's roster, but some of these people are just kind of there. Like they'll sign them, and we know they're really good wrestlers, but they don't really give the casual fan any reason to care about them. Ethan Page, for example, has cut a couple good promos. I know he's good. Why should you, if you've never watched him in Impact, why the fuck should you care about him? I know Alexis, who isn't really overly familiar with him, gives a shit about him. She doesn't care about him. I mean, he's only been here for a couple weeks, but we don't really know anything about him. We have no video package, no nothing. So they need to stop assuming that everyone who watches their product knows who all of these people are. To a certain extent, yes, they do. But some of these other people, no, not really. So they need to do a better job of that with everybody. WWE does too. NXT has the exact same problem sometimes. Some of these people, I think they bring in or they use, and there's just no character there. There's no reason to give a shit about these people. But the AEW women's division, it's especially prevalent, and they have to work on that going forward. The next question comes from Connor, I believe. I missed his question earlier. I put it before Brandon's, but I forgot to answer it. He said, when do you see Hikaru Shida dropping the AEW Women's Championship? Speaking of whom, I guess. And who do you see her losing it to? Double or Nothing would seem to make the most sense. By that point, she will have been champion for a year. And I think Sheeta's had a couple of good matches as champion. The problem is that just they don't really give her a lot of focus. Like, it feels like she's had the Asuka reign, where she's champion, but not really. Or like Baker and Rosa was easily the best thing to happen in that division. The match, the feud, everything. Both women. It's not even a championship feud. So when you have feuds that are better than the title program, that's a problem, because the title program should be taking precedence more often than not. So again, Sheeta's had some good matches. Even the Nyla Rose matches got better over time, and the Abaddon match was whatever. But like, I liked her match on TV with Penelope Ford last summer. I thought that was great. Even the Mizunami match was okay. I didn't think it was that good, but it was okay. She's got to lose the championship to Britt Baker. I don't know how you work your way around it, because Baker lost last week, but it was a lights out match, I assume, for a reason. The loss did not count on Britt Baker's record, did not count on Thunder Rosa's record, so maybe somehow Baker can argue that, and she can work her way around it, still earn herself a championship title shot. I would hope so. And we'll get it at Double or Nothing, Baker and Sheeta, or maybe a triple threat, which I don't think we've seen yet with the women. I know they've done a four-way. I don't know if it was for the champion. I think it was for the title. They did a four-way like a while ago, like in early 2020. But we haven't seen many of those matches. And again, I hate the multi-person matches, but we don't see triple threats often enough. We see a lot of fucking tag team shit, but we don't see a lot of triple threats with the women or fatal four-ways or whatever. So I would be fine with that. So I would say Double or Nothing, and I assume she'll lose it to Britt Baker, and maybe Rosa can claim, oh, I deserve a title shot, or blah, blah, blah. I don't know, to go back to that feud anytime soon after their lights out unsanctioned match would be a little much, but we'll see what happens. Next question comes from Noel from Facebook. Should Rhea Ripley beat Asuka at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship? Yes, she should. I'll talk more about this after. I'll answer the question now. At noob_n_code 1991, their question was this. Who will get the WrestleMania moment this year? I'm going with Asuka and Sasha Banks. They're long overdue for a Mania win and a Mania moment. It is easy to forget. I'll talk about Sasha in a second, but with Asuka, it's easy to forget that she's been here for almost 4 years now, and she's never won at WrestleMania. So let's go back a bit of a history lesson here, okay? WrestleMania 34 was her first when she faced Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. She lost. She suffered her first loss. She came up short. WrestleMania 35, she was the champion literally for months going into the pay-per-view, dropped the championship at the show that I was at, the SmackDown right before Mania, like 2 weeks before, not even. And she ended up in the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal and still lost. Lost that too. WrestleMania 36, she was the tag team champion, and she lost the tag team titles last year with Kairi Sane to Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. So she has been involved in a lot of different matches in Mania and has lost every single one of them. For a woman that is as accomplished as she is in this company, it is amazing that she has never won at WrestleMania. But I don't think she should win this year either, because you're putting yourself in a tough situation where, one, she should have beaten Charlotte 4 years ago, first of all, or 3 years ago. She should have beaten Charlotte at her first Mania, and you wouldn't have this problem. She would still be 3-1, but it's better than 0-4. But you can't have her beat Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley doesn't have as bad of a record at WrestleMania, but she lost last year when she shouldn't have. The only way to make up for that is by having Rhea Ripley beat Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. And I'm not usually an advocate of rushing people to the title picture. But the thing with Ripley was that she was already on the main roster. She was in the final two at the Royal Rumble. She was on the main roster, not officially, but for a little bit on the road to WrestleMania last year. She lost. That was the last that we saw of her before the Rumble. So in the main roster's viewers' eyes who don't watch NXT, they probably think she's a loser. And she's not. She's the farthest thing from it. She's booked as one on the main roster. Not yet. For the brief time she was on Raw last year, she lost. She's got to get that win back. You could put the belt on her. Charlotte comes back. Even if you do a triple threat at Mania, I don't think you have to. You can just have Charlotte come back. If they don't want to have Charlotte miss WrestleMania, make it a triple threat. Either way, though, Rhea has to walk out the Raw Women's Champion. Charlotte coming back out, winning the fucking title, and Rhea losing again. Like, Rhea lost to Charlotte twice, technically. She lost to her at WrestleMania, but then when they were in that triple threat with Io at TakeOver in your house, she lost that too. So she needs a win. She needs a major win. She lost the Rumble. She needs a fucking win. Like a big, important victory. And this would be it. Yeah, she beat Raquel Gonzalez at Halloween Havoc. That was months ago. She lost to her New Year's Evil. She lost to the Royal Rumble. She lost to WrestleMania last year. She lost to TakeOver in Your House. She needs a big win, and that should be it. I'm sorry, Asuka, but this is Rhea Ripley's time. Asuka retaining the title to continue her mediocre reign does absolutely nothing for me. It would be better than putting the belt right back on Charlotte, who, yeah, I know hasn't held the belt in a while, but Rhea Ripley is the answer right now. This division's a mess. It's not going to fix all their issues, but it will be a step in the right direction. As for Sasha Banks, going back to Noob's question for a second, all these people thinking, oh, it's a slam dunk that Bianca wins, obviously, because she's on fire and she won the Rumble. Yeah, she is on fire, and yes, she did win the Rumble. That does not mean that it's a guarantee that she's going to win a WrestleMania. And honestly, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I don't think she needs to win a WrestleMania. I'm not saying, oh, make Bianca lose. No, not at all. I would be stoked if she won. Honestly, of the two, I want her to win. And I love Sasha. I think, I'm not her biggest fan. I think she, currently with her current character work, just kind of unlikable. I don't know if she's a tweener or a face or a heel. It's kind of confusing. But anyway, with Sasha, she also, a lot like Asuka, has never won at WrestleMania. Sasha Banks is not Charlotte Flair. Charlotte beating Asuka when she had absolutely no reason to at 33 was stupid. Her beating Rhea last year was completely stupid. Yeah, they're both established, but Charlotte had already won at WrestleMania. She did not need either of those victories. And she also doesn't need, to win this year either when it comes to the Raw Women's Championship, and I already got done talking about that. With Sasha, though, she's never won at WrestleMania, and I think she's had more matches? No, she's had as many matches as Charlotte. But again, quick history lesson here. WrestleMania 32, her first WrestleMania, loses in the triple threat that also involved Becky Lynch. She lost to Charlotte on that night. WrestleMania 33, she was involved in the four-way for the Raw Women's Championship, and she lost that too. I think she was the first or second. I think she was the second one gone after Nia Jax. WrestleMania 34, involved in the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal and the kickoff show, got eliminated, lost. WrestleMania 35, involved in the tag team title match, Fatal 4-Way tag team title match, lost with Bayley to the Iconics. And last year she lost in the Fatal 5-Way match, I think it was, in the SmackDown Women's title 5-Way. It was elimination style, and Bayley won. So she's also never had a one-on-one WrestleMania match, which is fucking wild. I guess Bayley hasn't either when you think about it. Or has she? No, I think she hasn't either. Becky has not. No, Becky did. Becky did last year. Charlotte has, obviously. Sasha and Bayley have not, which is kind of crazy. But, yeah, Sasha's 0-5. 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. That's fucking crazy. She needs to win at some point. Her WrestleMania record is awful. She has the reverse streak right now. So, honestly, Bianca can be champion tomorrow, and I think everyone would be happy with it. I don't think anyone would complain with that. But you can also, it's not like her momentum, I mean, she is really hot right now, but I don't think she would suffer, especially to Sasha, because it really depends who she's losing to. It's not just the fact that she's losing, it depends who she's losing to. If it's someone who could equally use a victory, like Sasha, then it's kind of okay. If she goes on to win at the next pay-per-view or at the SummerSlam pay-per-view and Bianca has to work her way back up because she's kind of, getting too big for her britches type of thing, kind of like what they did with Asuka at 34, except the aftermath of that sucked. I think that was even worse. Charlotte should not have won. But then when she did, they could have told a story with Asuka where Asuka had to work her way back up, and she kind of did, but she lost a lot of momentum in 2018. I'm hoping the same doesn't happen for Bianca, considering the company and who we're talking about here. But I think Sasha could use the victory way more than Asuka. Asuka's WrestleMania moment could be just going in there and having a great match. I think her WrestleMania moment to date, I think she said, is facing Charlotte. Certainly wouldn't be the fucking Battle Royal or the tag team title match, so it's probably that match. But yeah, to answer your questions, Rhea Ripley should win the Raw Women's Championship in Mania. And I say, hey, if Sasha wins, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining if Bianca wins either. I'm honestly kind of happy whoever wins. And hopefully Bianca will become champion sooner rather than later, and I'm sure she will. No's second question, also from Facebook, whose Joker character was better, Dark Knight Heath Ledger or Joker of, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker? That's a great question. I'm not a big comic book guy. I'm not a big DC guy, so you're probably asking the wrong person. in terms of like, oh, this person made a better Joker and was more accurate to the comics, blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking about seeing the movies multiple times and enjoying both movies a lot. Both movies are fantastic. Of the two, who I thought did a better Joker, I'm going to say Heath Ledger, just because Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job. The thing is with Joaquin Phoenix is that, honestly, if you don't call him the Joker, he would just be I think of the two, Phoenix's acting job was better. But as a better Joker, which was your question, I would go with Heath Ledger. And again, I'm not going off of anything in the comics or the other movies and shit like that. Just the way that he portrayed the Joker was amazing. Phoenix wasn't really the Joker until the end, and he was kind of just like this depressed dude that just reached this breaking point and was just beat down until he finally snapped and just went on a fucking killing spree. I mean, honestly, that's a realistic story. That could happen to anybody. And it doesn't have to be called the Joker. So I'm going to go with Heath Ledger, though I did enjoy Phoenix's acting job more. Both movies are fantastic if you haven't seen either of them. Even if you're not a comic book fan, I mean, I wasn't a big Marvel guy when I saw the Dark Knight movie when it came out in 2008. I hadn't seen Iron Man yet, I don't think. But I just love the movie. As a as a movie, it's a great fucking movie. As is the Joker, for just non-comic related things. At LILJDC USIC3, little JD Cussick, I believe. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, but that's the Twitter username. Your question was, thoughts on the WrestleMania card not feeling like WrestleMania, and will people change their mind if the show is good despite the build-up not being great? Yeah, the build-up has sucked. The fact that they're confirming the card and they made like 3 matches official on Monday, hey, listen, better now than in 2 weeks, but that's still not an excuse. I know they had Fastlane on Sunday, but again, still not an excuse. You could have already announced most of the matches for Mania, and they did with Sasha and Bianca and with Edge and Roman, but like Bobby and Drew could have been made official a while ago. Why did they wait until the week before Fastlane? Ripley and Asuka, I know the plans changed because of Charlotte's status with COVID and whatever else, but the thing with that was that Asuka didn't factor into anything in Fastlane. She hasn't defended her fucking title on pay-per-view since September, which is ridiculous. They could have done this match and announced it a month ago. Ripley's been waiting to get called up for a month now. She was in the Rumble. She's been sitting around doing nothing for 2 months now. So really, again, no excuse, in my opinion. They could have announced The Fiend in Orton, brought back The Fiend a month ago, done the fucking build a month ago. Like, why are you waiting until the literal last minute? You know, it just makes no sense. Last year, I get it because of COVID and shit changed. This year, there's no excuse. And again, I know they were waiting until after Fastlane, but then just don't do fucking Fastlane. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, I think the show could still end up being good. And I said, not last week, but one of these weeks, someone said, oh, was the show automatically going to be great because there's going to be fans? Not necessarily. I mean, last year's Mania, the atmosphere was terrible. They were in the PC, no fans, literally just one fan. And it wasn't a person, it was the feeling. It was the fan on the ceiling. That was all that we heard throughout the show. Not even any crowd noise, nothing. So the atmosphere is obviously going to be better than last year. But there was some good stuff last year. I like the Firefly Funhouse stuff. You know, Brock and Drew was what it needed to be. I love the Boneyard match. Charlotte and Rhea had a great match. The ladder match was great. Owens and Rollins was great. It's not like last year, oh, there's no fans. It's one of the worst ever. If you thought last year's was worse than 32, I mean, again, this just goes to show 32 at 100,000 people in attendance, or 90,000, whoever you want to believe. The most amount of people for a WrestleMania ever, even over WrestleMania 3. Almost 100,000 people. The show sucked. It sucked. The main event sucked. Shane and Taker almost put me to sleep. The women's match was good, was great actually. The Jericho Styles match I thoroughly enjoyed. The ladder match was great. But like League of Nations and New Day, who cares? You know, honestly, I don't remember the rest of the card. That show just went on for fucking ever. Brock and Dean was just not what it should have been. Just not a great WrestleMania at all. Like the shit with Cena and Wyatt and Rock was just a waste of fucking time. The Eater of Hot Pockets, oh god. I would much rather watch WrestleMania 36 over WrestleMania 30 day any day of the week. WrestleMania 32. Did I say WrestleMania 30? WrestleMania 32. WrestleMania 36 was a far better show, in my opinion, despite the atmosphere being terrible, was a better show than 32. So it's not just because, they're going to have fans, it's going to be a good show. You never know. I know that's not your question, but someone mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. No, I think the show could still be good despite the build-up being bad. I mean, you got to have, for a perfect pay-per-view, the build-up's got to be good. The matches have got to be good. The execution's got to be good. The outcome's got to be good. The aftermath has got to be good. WrestleMania 17 literally had all of that, I think, except the aftermath. Because the Attitude Era died that night at WrestleMania 17, and the invasion shit was terrible. So maybe the aftermath was there, maybe it wasn't. But the build-up was great. From what I understand, I wasn't watching at the time. The matches were great. The promos were great. The atmosphere was great. It was a perfect pay-per-view, really. WrestleMania 37 will be no WrestleMania 17. But at the same time, though, I still feel like it's going to be hopefully a good show. When the 2 nights will help with it not going past midnight, which is a big, big help. That'll definitely change my perception of the pay-per-view. A lot like it did last year. I think separating it into 2 nights, I don't know if it's going to be a full-time thing or a permanent move, but I think it's a very good idea. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube machine, check out his show, or from the Twitter machine, check out his YouTube show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. His first question was, so was it just me, or was this week's Raw a lot better than the previous weeks for God knows how long? Not saying it was great, but at least they provided more good than bad. Yeah, I was finishing my written review of Raw yesterday for WrestleRant.com, cheap plug. And, I kind of realized there was a bit of a better show than usual. Better show than last week for sure. I thought last week's show sucked. It wasn't a great show. The third hour dragged. Shayna and Nia versus, Dana and Mandy? Who cares? There was some stuff on Monday that I didn't really give a shit about, but, the Fiend and Orton stuff was exactly what it needed to be. AJ and Kofi had a good match. Bobby and Sheamus had another good match. Even the handicap match I thought was really good. And they set up a lot of matches for Mania, which was what it was especially effective at. So, yeah, I don't even know if I would call it a good show on Monday, but it was slightly better than usual. By usual standards, it would still probably be mediocre. And it was kind of a mediocre show, but it was better than recent weeks. So I will say that. His second question, did you think NWA Back for the Attack was good all things considered, especially since they've been dormant for a year? My only real issue with the show is Tyrus' involvement, and I thought the women's match and the main event were good. Yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable pay-per-view. I did not have the chance to watch it on Sunday itself. I caught up on Monday, but I thought it was good. I think coming back with a pay-per-view is questionable. I know AEW's first show was Double or Nothing, but AEW and NWA are two totally different things. And they also had the build-up via Being the Elite. At that point, NWA had literally nothing. They announced all the matches like days in advance on Twitter. This wasn't even a thing until a couple of weeks ago. You had to pay for this. And again, it's a pay-per-view. I get it, but why would I pay for a pay-per-view that just the matches on paper? Some of them were very good. It's just that there was no storylines or anything. Like, they didn't even use their YouTube channel to build up some of these matches. But I thought, again, all things considered, it was a good show. I thought Camille and Thunder Rosa had a good match. Stevens and Aldis had a great main event. You mentioned both of those. Even Trevor Murdoch and Chris Adonis, I thought, had a good match, to be honest with you. I enjoyed that as well. The Pope match was fine. Who did he face? Was it Tom Latimer? I think that was Tom Latimer. They had a decent match. Yeah, Tyrus, that's another issue. Why they would hire that guy, I have no fucking clue. I used to be the biggest Brodus Clay fan. Like, not one of my favorite wrestlers, but, I enjoyed the guy, and I enjoyed the Funkasaurus shit. I thought he had a lot of untapped potential. And I even had the chance to interview him like 5 or 6 years ago, and he was pretty cool. But, like, there's been a lot of shit that's come out about him in the last couple of years. He's been on Fox, and he had I think he still does actually, has a sexual harassment lawsuit against him. Why the fuck would you want to touch this guy right now? Like, you literally just, not sever ties, but, like, you're not working with Marty Scurll right now, which he was heavily involved with the NWA for a while. You're not working with him for similar reasons. And with Tyrus, it might be even worse. Because with Tyrus, there's a literal lawsuit out. Now, granted, he might be innocent, because he hasn't been in court yet. I don't think so. The guy seems like a piece of shit to me. So why bother bringing him in? I think that's highly questionable. Who the fuck cares about Tyrus from 2021? Seriously, what does he bring to the table? And the match wasn't even that good. Kratos is okay, but or Kratos or whatever his name is, Tyrus sucks. He was never that good in the ring to begin with. As a promo guy, maybe 5 years ago in the NWA would have been fine. In 2021, yeah, no thanks. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, do you see the Universal Championship match headlining night 2 of WrestleMania 37? I do, as it should. Night 1, I assume it's going to be Drew and Bobby. And the thing with Sasha and Bianca, listen, I said a month or so ago it should main event night 1. The problem is that they've made me significantly less interested in that match, and I know they're going to kill it. But like the build for Sasha and Bianca does not scream main event at all. The shit with Nia and Shayna has been atrocious. Has been terrible. Reginald, who fucking cares? The build for the match has been very disappointing. Bobby and Drew has not been the greatest build, but it's been a better build, I would say. So yeah, I would have that go on main event night 1, unless something drastically changes in the next couple of weeks. And then at night 2, it would be the Universal title match. That's probably the match I'm looking forward to more than any other match on the card, is Edge and Roman, or Edge, Roman, and Bryan, which is probably what it's going to be. What would the other match be? Rhea and Asuka? There's no story there. I'm looking forward to that too, but why would you have that main event? You know, and it's not going to be Fiend and Orton. Oh my God, I hope not. Even if it's a cinematic match, that would be awful. If that's the main event, no thanks, dude. It'll definitely main event. I almost guarantee you of that. The Roman Reigns Universal title match. I read that Edge apparently turned heel last Sunday at Fastlane while he was at his most successful as a heel. Not that he wasn't successful as a face. Do you feel that either that report was false or it doesn't make sense for him to turn heel? So yeah, he did kind of give off heel tendencies at Fastlane when he attacked Roman with a chair, but then he also attacked Bryan with the chair. And it wasn't just like, hey, I'll get you back for hitting me with your running knee a couple weeks ago. He hit him twice with the chair, and he came across like a crazy lunatic. He didn't look conflicted. I mean, he kind of did, but he was giving off heel Edge vibes. So I don't know if he's turning heel. I don't know if they're doing what they did with WrestleMania 30, where, remember, Batista was the babyface going into that show. He turned heel before Mania, so he was kind of a tweener heel, whatever. It turned into a full-fledged heel after Mania, but kind of a tweener before then, because he was also kind of feuding with Orton. But yeah, Edge can kind of fill that role this year. He's kind of like the Batista of the match. Roman Reigns is Randy Orton, and Daniel Bryan is, well, Daniel Bryan. I mean, Edge is a babyface. I think there's more for you to do there. He was going to turn heel inevitably anyway. Does it make sense? Yes. I mean, the story is that he wants to win the title that he never lost. But it's not even like he lost to Roman and then he snapped. He hasn't even gotten the opportunity yet. Like, he's just mad that Bryan is getting inserted, that he almost came close to winning the championship. He comes across like a baby, to be honest with you, in getting upset that Bryan might be added to the match. And that way, yes, he is a heel. So maybe it is the right call to turn him heel. SmackDown needs more elite heels anyway. There really is just Randy Orton, and that's it. You have Sami Zayn. He's mid-card. He's not main event material. Corbin is just not main event at this point. Apollo Crews is great. He's upper mid-card, I would say, but he's not quite at that level. You have a lot of heel mid-card. Or Rollins, I guess. Rollins. But still, I think you need another one, so I guess you could say the same thing for baby faces on the show. But yeah, Edge, turning him heel isn't a terrible call. We'll just see where they go with it. His second question, do you think the promotion AEW should stop forming stables following the Pinnacle? Yes, they should. Not ever. They shouldn't never form another stable, but to form any more in the next foreseeable future, the next week or couple of weeks or months, would be fucking dumb. We had the debut of the Matt Hardy Empire recently, too. Matt Hardy with Private Party, I think, is cool. Matt Hardy with Butcher and Blade, who cares about Butcher and Blade? If you do, more power to you. It seems like such a weird fit, and who gives a fuck, honestly. So, yeah, no more stables for right now, please. I do not need to see another 10-man tag team match on Dark or Elevation or Dynamite or whatever the fuck. So, hopefully this is it for for AEW's stables and factions for now. Do you think Baker and Rosa will be really where the women's division will step up big time? So you're talking about the match last week. I'm not really sure what your question is, but I know Britt Baker did an interview with Renee Paquette. I think it's to pronounce Renee Young's real name or real last name. She did an interview with Renee talking about how the match really showed where the women can step up. I don't know if you're talking about that, but I completely agree. I would hope that the women of AEW see the match and think to themselves, hey, I would love to be in that spot. The thing is, though, it's not really their fault. It's not like they've been resting on their laurels. They have some great female talent there. The problem is that the company, Tony Khan, does not treat these women like a priority. Like, you have Brandy Rhodes in a high position on the show, But I feel like, even Kenny Omega's fighting for the Joshi women and stuff like that. I feel like Tony Khan is just honestly not a women's wrestling fan. I'm not saying he's a misogynist or he hates women's wrestling, but I feel like if he was a bigger women's wrestling fan, then he would have booked the division better prior to this point. AEW's been around for 2 years now. There is no excuse for how lame their women's division is and how there's a lack of characters, everything we talked about earlier. And it's not the fault of the women either, because they have some really good women there they're not doing anything with. So I would hope that this is a turning point for the women's division. We'll see. And I'm glad that was the first female main event. It should happen a while ago, but I'm glad it was that one, just because they deserved it. And the match was amazing, so we'll see where they go with it after this. Final few questions first from @E13A. Have you heard about Will Ospreay winning the New Japan 2021 Cup and betraying Bea Priestley? I didn't see it. I did hear about it. Will Ospreay is awesome. I very much enjoyed his match with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom this year. Him winning the cup is fine. Him and Ibushi should be amazing. The betrayal of Priestley is where people got a lot of flack. People got really pissed about that. I don't know why. So I had heard that, I don't know if it was from Meltzer or someone else, that angle was done because Priestley's contract, New Japan, is coming up soon, and that was kind of like their way of writing her off. It's better than her just disappearing, which I hate. Like I said earlier, when you don't explain where people go and they just disappear from their promotion. If you don't read the dirt sheets, which some people don't, shocker, then you wouldn't know where she went. So was that the best way of doing it? I don't know if it was like the way that I would have booked it. I honestly don't really see what the big deal is. Unless there's something there that I'm just not aware of. I know they were involved in some shit last year during the speaking out stuff. I don't know if that had to do with it. People were like, domestic violence. I'm like, domestic violence? If they did a storyline where it was like, he beat the shit out of her and the storyline was that like he was abusing her, yeah, then I would obviously have a problem with that, but like, I think he just hit her with like the Oz cutter or something, right? Like, this was literally Randy Orton, Stacy Keibler, circa 2005. I mean, obviously the biggest difference is that was over 15 years ago. Just because they were doing it back then doesn't mean it's okay today. But like, we just saw, did we not just see a month or two ago Randy Orton RKO Alexa Bliss on Raw? I'm not saying these people were creaming their pants over that, but I thought that was kind of cool. We never see intergender stuff on the shows. And I'm not even saying it should just be man on woman. Woman on man violence is fine too on these shows if you can do it properly. This isn't even a match. Like, if they did Will Ospreay and Bea Priestley in a match, I'd be like, okay, that's a little weird. Even though I don't know if they're married or what the deal is there, but I mean, I would trust that they wouldn't hurt each other. I don't know. I didn't really see what the big deal was. People were shitting all over that. Oh, it's one of the worst things New Japan's ever done. I'm sure it's because I don't follow the product, and maybe I'm missing something aside from the fact they were involved in some shit last year. I just don't get what the big deal is about it. Again, if it was just one, if he just took his time beating the shit out of her, it's like, okay, this is a little weird. If it was just one move to explain, okay, she's gone from the show, I don't know. Someone's got to lighten me up on that, because that didn't make a lot of sense to me as to why people would be pissed. I'm not saying, oh my God, what a great angle, but like, I don't really see what the big deal is. So anyway, it is what it is. Ospreay winning the cup, I think, is cool, and him and Ibushi. I might have to take time out of my schedule to watch that, because that sounds like it's going to be amazing. Thoughts on Andrade's release? Yes, Andrade did get his release officialized. It's not even a word. Finalized on Sunday. WWE announced it right after the Fastlane pay-per-view. I don't think, maybe I did talk about Andrade last week. I don't remember. Honestly, I might have. I just don't recall here on the show. I know I talked about it on WrestleRant Radio with RJ last Thursday. I know that. But I think it's cool. Good for him. And it's not that I want to see every talented performer leave WWE. I'm a big WWE fan, as I am of every other promotion. I would love to see people thrive in WWE. We are seeing people thrive in WWE. But the bottom line is this. If they have no fucking plans for the guy, it's not even like he was WWE champion and I'm like, oh, go to AEW, you'd have better matches there. Like, the guy, they clearly don't see him as a priority. They did at times, other times they didn't. The bottom line is this. He has been off the show for 5 months. 5.5 months. That's a long time if you're not injured. He might have had surgery for a month or two, but then he would have been ready by January, December. That's not really an excuse. If you literally have no plans for the guy, just let him go. Just release him so he can go wrestle elsewhere. You know, if you're doing something with him and he's involved in a title push or whatever, I mean, if he's getting like buried on TV, I would still probably say leave, but he's not even being used. He's not even being used, and this is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Not even saying characters, like one of the best wrestlers in the world. Just let him go. To Ring of Honor, that's where I want to see him end up personally. AEW would be cool. I mean, if they use him properly, that's the thing. Miro has been there and he's done jack shit. So, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's cool they let him go and that he has no 90-day non-compete clause and he has no, issues with using the name Andrade, which is fucking cool. You never see that. Even the Revival, I mean, they didn't have a non-compete clause, even though I think they should have, because I don't think their contracts expired. I think they were let go early out of their deal. But they couldn't use the Revival. They couldn't call themselves anything involving the Revival. So, they went with FTR, which is still a cool name. With Andrade, he's apparently able to use the Andrade name, which is interesting. He's calling himself El Idolo Andrade on Twitter still. He changed the username to something else, Andrade El Idolo or whatever. Not La Sombra, which is what I was expecting. He could still end up using La Sombra, but the fact he's calling himself Andrade is interesting, and he's kind of using the name that he's been, honestly, La Sombra is an awesome name, but he's made money off of the Andrade name, so why not just continue using it? It's not even a bad name. I know Jon Moxley went back to using Jon Moxley and didn't use Dean Ambrose, but, that's a little different because he couldn't use Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose isn't that. And not to say Andrade is this amazing name, but I don't know. It's a tough thing. Jon Moxley is a great name. It really doesn't matter if he goes back to La Sombra or Andrade or whatever the fuck. But hey, if you can use the name, you might as well fucking use it. So I think it's cool he got let go. I think it's a great move on WWE's part to finally. I mean, it wasn't a great move to not use him, but I'm glad they let him go early, and he's dealing with no issues out of it, hopefully. And I don't know, Charlotte had something to do with that. I honestly have no idea why they did all that nice shit for him, but one can only assume. Final 3 question from that Scarlet 1. Best and worst of Fastlane. The best 2 things on the show were McIntyre and Sheamus. Yes, we've seen it before, but it was still an enjoyable war. Thought it was a good match. The main event with Bryan and Edge, or Bryan and Roman for the Universal Championship with Edge, the special enforcer, I thought was great. I thought it was a great match. The storytelling was strong, setting the stage probably for a triple threat at Mania. I thought that was great. Rollins and Nakamura, I wouldn't put in the best category, but it was still a pretty good match. Wasn't at the level of a match that it could have been, 5 years ago maybe when Nakamura first came in and Rollins was a bit younger and wasn't injured a bunch, but it was still it was not a fantastic match, but it was still pretty good. The worst of the show, Big E and Apollo Crews was disappointing. They got almost no time, and then the finish was not good. I was hoping Crews would win, but if it was a great match and, the finish was better booked, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But the finish was rushed. It did not look good, and the match was rushed too. So I know they're probably holding off till Mania, but still, that was still disappointing for this show. The women's tag team title match, again, there was no bad match in the show. Orton and Alexa Bliss was exactly what I expected it to be, so I really don't have any thoughts on that, aside from the Fiend costume looking cool. I thought that looked pretty cool. But yeah, the women's tag team title match wasn't bad, but I just didn't care. We knew Nia and Shayna were going to win, probably. I mean, there was always the chance Sasha and Bianca could win, then lose it to Natalya and Tamina, which would have been awful. But the match was what it was, and the dissension, it's can't we just further the Bianca-Sasha feud without Nia and Shayna being involved? Please. Please. And then Strowman and Elias, less said about that, the better. Thoughts on Peacock, at Scarlet1 says. I keep saying fuck Peacock. I do keep saying fuck Peacock, and I mean that half jokingly, just because Peacock on the whole seems like a great service. They have all episodes of Monk and Psych on there, and House, 3 of my favorite shows of all time. They're all on there in their entirety, I'm pretty sure. That's pretty cool for a fan like me. I just like the WWE Network. I think it's the end of an era. I think it was just way better organized on the WWE Network. They had better features, and even if they do introduce these features on Peacock, like the pausing of the live stream or being able to rewind or start in the middle of the show and, watch from beginning and not watch while it's live, even if they do introduce that stuff, it's still like a Netflix with wrestling. It's not a wrestling network like the WWE Network is elsewhere now outside of the United States. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing. So it's going to take months for the shit to be up there. Everything's all over the place. The search option isn't as great. Oh, the quality's better. Honestly, though, I didn't really have an issue with the quality. I really didn't. So I can't say that really makes much of a difference to me that the streaming quality is better. It never crashed for me. I don't know if that's an internet thing or what, but I never had a single problem. Not recently, maybe when it first started, but not recently. So, yeah, I'm not happy with Peacock. I'm really not. Yeah, it's cheaper, but I would rather just pay the $10 to get the network, to be completely honest with you. Thoughts on Rhea Ripley and Asuka for WrestleMania was the last question. I already talked about why Rhea should win, but as far as the match itself, I think it's a great idea. Rhea should not be involved in the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. Who gives a shit? Saving her for after WrestleMania would have been disappointing, just because she's already been at WrestleMania. She's not she is a fresh face, but she's not someone that we haven't seen before on the main roster. We've seen her a bunch. She was involved in the Survivor Series build. She was involved in the build for WrestleMania 36 last year. She needs to win at WrestleMania. I don't think you're hot-shotting her to the title picture, and even if you are, she should be. Because who else from that Raw Women's division is ready for that spot? Aside from Charlotte, which I don't want to see her and Asuka fucking again. No thanks. A triple threat maybe, with the stories you can tell there with all three women. Charlotte, Ripley, and Asuka I think would be cool. Charlotte and Asuka one-on-one, which isn't happening at this point unless Rhea gets sick or something, which hopefully she does not. But yeah, and the triple threat would be cool, but one-on-one, no. Naomi I like, but they've done nothing with her since she's come back, aside from the tag team stuff with Lana, who's putrid. I have no desire to see them as a tag team. Mandy means absolutely nothing now. Dana Brooke is Dana Brooke. Shayna is so far devalued, it's not even funny from where she was a year ago. Nia Jax is terrible. Who else even is there, to be honest with you? Peyton Royce? She had a good showing on Raw this week, but she got beat. So Ripley's really the only option left, and she has to win. She's got to make up for last year's loss and become champion. If not, she's already off to not a great start on the main roster. And yeah, it's great. It's great she's in a title match on WrestleMania, but that's not enough. If she came in and she lost on night one after not being there last year, if she wasn't there last year, I'd almost be okay with that. But she was there last year and she lost when she shouldn't have. So now it is imperative that she wins at WrestleMania 37 and becomes Raw Women's Champion, in my opinion. And that's going to do it, guys, for this week's edition of #AskGSM episode 382. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to or drop a comment on the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up, including many, many exclusive interviews. Like I said, we got literally 4 this week alone. Probably more this week than... You're getting 7 interviews in the span of a week. Between the 3 last week with the Young Rock guy, Shotzi Blackheart, Daniel Bryan, and now this week, EC3 today, Rhea Ripley, which was an older one, but it was still an interview from last year. Another Ring of Honor star coming tomorrow, and then on Friday, another WWE star. You can't go wrong. So subscribe. I can't thank you guys enough. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it enough. It means the world, so thank you. And hopefully we can just keep on moving to that next milestone. So I would greatly appreciate that if you can help me do that. So again, guys, have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.